Welcome to the Broncos Podcast with Troy Renck. I am your host, Troy Renck from the Denver Post. I am live here in Lewisburg, West Virginia. Been about a week-long stay here, 5-6 days. A quaint place. It's at one point was considered the coolest small town in America. Beautiful downtown. It reminds me a lot of Cooperstown, New York, a little bit bigger. But just when you're in these small towns, everything shuts down around 5, and we don't get done working till around 7. So you're searching for places to eat. Ate at a great place last night, Del Sol. There was a Humble Tomato in there somewhere, the Soul Asylum. So shout out to Lewisburg. The accommodations have been fantastic at the Airbnb where I'm broadcasting now. This house, I think, was built in 1842. But I got to do the broadcast a little early this morning because we got to be out. We are going to be on the road back to Dulles, to Washington, D.C., fly to Newark, and finally a game in this crazy road trip from Tampa to D.C. to West Virginia, back to D.C., back to Newark, back to Denver. We're moving along in the legs, and the Broncos have spent the better part of 5 days now getting ready for Game Green at the Greenbrier Resort. Find someone in your life that loves the Greenbrier Resort as much as Sean Payton loves this place. Holy smokes. He is in love with this place. And I wondered when I got here, like the 3 reasons to come here would be to take your significant other for a getaway, play championship golf, and maybe rehab or get off the grid. It's a beautiful place, but it is off the beaten path. So how did the Broncos preparation go? Do we think it was a productive week? What are some of the players saying, like Quinn Myers, like John Franklin Myers? What were they saying about it? This has been a fantastic voyage, but if it doesn't produce a win, was it worth it? Or should they have just stayed in Denver? I will say this, unfortunately, and I'm praying for those people back in Tampa. They made the right decision not to stay in Tampa. The weather in Tampa with Hurricane Helene, man, it is. Praying for all those folks. We were just there. Hurricanes are scary. I've been through one tropical depression years ago, and man, it is scary. So praying for all those folks. But did the Broncos' decision to come to Greenbrier, which is Sean Payton's haunt, he loves this place, helped design the whole NFL setup here. Can it pay off? Did it prepare them for the Jets? What did he think? What are the players saying? We will get to all of that after the break. Have you been injured in a car wreck or hurt at work? What are you waiting for? Give my friends at Hackett Injury Law a call. Their motto, with us, it's personal. I've known Darby Hackett forever. We became good friends. He told me, do a Broncos podcast, and I did. I'm so happy I have. Many of his clients become Darby's good friend. You don't even have to pay Darby up front. If your case goes as planned, Darby will be the one writing checks to you. So again, if you've been hurt in a car wreck or injured at work, give Darby a call. His team's number, 1-833-HOGGATT. That's 1-833-HOGGET. Website at hoggettlaw.com. Welcome back to the Broncos Podcast. Troy, again, I'm here in West Virginia. Outside, it has been raining and windy pretty much from the moment we drove in. We were trying not to hydroplane at one point about 5 miles outside of White Sulphur Springs. That is technically where the Broncos are. We are staying, Parker Gabriel and I from the Post, staying in Lewisburg, which is about 10 minutes away. The weather, they've had windows of sun, and you're like, how could they practice with all the rain? Well, quick backstory on the Greenbrier Resort. It's owned by the governor, Jim Phillips. I don't know the governor. I know this. I love his dog. He's got a bulldog called Baby Dog, an 8-year-old bulldog that goes to events with him. You can buy Christmas ornaments with Baby Dog on it. They were $26 for a Christmas ornament that probably retail value should be somewhere between 45 cents and 85 cents. So I did not get the Baby Dog Christmas ornament at the White Christmas Depot in White Sulphur Springs. That said, great store. I just didn't want to pay that much for that. Payton knows the governor. He meets him. He caddies in an event here in July 4th, years ago, like more than a decade ago. And the guy's telling him, this before he's the governor, that he wants to build an NFL complex. He wants people to train. So Sean Payton was heavily involved in the design of this place. He and Mickey, the GM, of the Saints. So they designed this huge sports performance center. It's really just a rectangle. It went up like in 90 days. It's just like a rectangle box with meeting rooms. Sean Payton has an office here. That should tell you how much he loves this place. There's 2 NFL fields, and then down below, under these Allegheny Mountains, is a full-size turf field. And so that's where the Broncos have been. They were yesterday. I expect they will be there today because of the rain. And the field conditions, I'll be honest, they look NFL quality with the grass when they were on it. And obviously the AstroTurf is the turf. I mean, it's functional. But they're an 11,000-acre resort with 20 restaurants. They're waiting on them hand over foot. It's just there's not a lot to do. You can go golf, you can go fish, and you can bowl and go to the arcade. So it's weird that way for grown men in their mid-20s. It's not the usual stuff, the standard fare, but again, the food and everything you're going to get, you're talking about a world-class resort. So it's not like, these are first world problems being in an area that you're just not used to, where you can't walk out of your door and go shopping, and you can't go to Ruth Chris Steakhouse or whatever. That's where they usually stay, at Weston's and the nicer hotels, that when you walk out the door, there's everything for you. But talking to players, for the most part, they seem to have adapted. There's a collegiate feel to this trip. Like the answers are in our locker room. They obviously have confidence coming off last week, the upset of 26-7 upset of the Buccaneers. And that's one of the things that's interesting that you may not know when you're back home, but when they're out here practicing here, their practice has been very businesslike. And I can appreciate that because they're not acting like they were surprised they beat Tampa Bay. Sean Payton was grumpy on Monday, and that's by design. That, hey, we're not going to make a big deal about this. We expect to win. I appreciate that mindset. I do. Now, this week, the challenge is much different. Tampa Bay was missing 3 defensive key players, starters, including Vita Vea. That hurt them. That's not the Broncos' fault. I mean, they need not apologize for any road win ever. But the Jets' defense is stout. They will get after the quarterback. They are vertical. They're like the Niners. Robert Saleh, if you think about the Niners' best defenses, they are vertical. They are running after. They're going to affect the quarterback, and they're going to hit the quarterback. It does leave them at times vulnerable to the run game. And that's where the run game, that short screen, the draws, I think the Broncos really have to tap into that, because right now, Bo Nix dropping back 4th most in the NFL, 127 times in 3 games. It's an average, again, right at 39, 40 times. It's over 40 times a game, right at 43 a game. That's not a recipe to beat the Jets. With their coverage, especially Sauce Gardner, he's their version of Patrick Surtain. They need to be able to get the ball out quickly and to find ways to negate the rush. But the preparation and the attitude, the collegiate field, us against the world, some of the players have equated it to being like on a bowl game trip, like Bo Nix. I mean, so there's some advantages to being here. Can they make it count? Can they make this Greenbrier excursion work? And I will say this, and I'm not the first one that's going to say this, if they win this game, don't be surprised if the Broncos spend a portion of training camp next year at the Greenbrier. And would that be 10 days, 9 days, 2 weeks? I'm just planting that seed. As long as Sean Payton's in charge, believe me, he wants to make annual trips here, either on the East Coast swing where they have back-to-back games, or would they, like the Browns were out here last year, I think for 7 days, 9 days, and would the Broncos come in after the Browns? They couldn't come in early because the Browns, I think, came in because Shelby Harris, I talked to him before he came to camp for the Browns. They were here like July 26th to August 3rd or 4th. Would the Broncos come in after that, come in and then do a joint practice with the Browns, who have a contract next year, and then stay for their week and then play against the Browns or somebody back east? Keep in mind that especially if they win and they end up 2-2, it will allow the Broncos making another trip to Greenbrier, America's resort, Operation Greenbrier, not to be confused with Operation Blackbriar from Born Identity. Totally different operation. I checked, totally different. Matt Damon, nowhere to be found, totally different operation. So, but the players have embraced this. Now, again, privately, if they lose, we might hear some grumbling behind the scenes. But for now, they've embraced the collegiate feel, the challenge of the us against the world, of going to New York and kind of in that spotlight. And it's the right mindset. So let's hear from first Quinn Myers and then John Franklin Myers, kind of about their week at the Greenbrier, some of the ways they spent their time, and the challenge of facing a Jets team that's coming off its best game, smashed the Patriots. This team's finally rolling after getting smoked on opening night. So what are the players saying about this preparation at the Greenbrier Resort? Let's hear from Quinn Myers and John Franklin Myers.
Enjoying the hotel and got beautiful facilities here for us.
Did you find it fun off-day activity?
Went swimming a little bit and then went to the bowling alley. I brought my own ball and shoes, but they didn't oil the lanes. So as soon as I threw the ball, it went straight to the gutter. And then when it came back from the return, had scratches on my ball and everything. So I kind of stopped bowling and then went to the arcade.
You sound like a bowling expert. What do you usually bowl? What kind of scores?
My league average was 200 a year ago, so right around there.
That's pretty salty.
Quinn, how pleased were you with the offensive line's performance last week? No sacks allowed, kept the run game going in the second half, and how do you keep that going this week?
Yeah, it was great. We played great. I think it started with our practices, and so I think we've done a really good job so far this week early and taking advantage of these practices, making them feel more game-like, and to be able to take those reps from practice and bring them into the game. We know what kind of front we have to go against this week, and how important it is this week for us to have another good week on the O-line.
How was the communication with you and Paucho working together for the first extensive time?
It was good. I mean, I've worked with Paucho in the past, and it's been great. You know, this is his year 2 in this system, so you know he's quite familiar with what's going on, and you know, whether it be extra reps, talking in meetings, talking after practice, after meetings, of how I think we should attack some certain things, and hearing his opinions as well. I think we've been able to work really well together.
Tyler's had some big runs, and the small opportunities he's had, those may increase. What have you seen from his ground game?
I see that he makes a quick decision and just hits it as hard as he can and kind of sees what happens. And that was kind of what happened on those last couple plays. You know, the defense was a little bit tired at the end there. You know, it was a hot game, and I think he was just hitting it hard and falling forward.
The run, you guys had balance with that run game. What is the challenge with Quentin Williams in that Jets defensive front?
We've stressed a lot of technique this week, so I think we have to play with our technique. I think we have a lot of good ways to attack this defense. I mean, Quentin Williams is an incredible player, and so we'll definitely have our hands full with him. You know, when it comes time, you know, during the game, whether it be in the run phase or the pass phase. But I think we have a really good plan so far.
Put on a dominant performance, play physical, run to the ball, and play with the effort and physicality I always do, except I know the guys. And playing this league long enough, one thing's for sure, you'll get to know just about everybody you play against. So it's no different. These guys, good friends of mine, but ain't no friends in this business. So like I said, ain't no friendly fire.
What's it like, though, going back, you know, the charity work you did there, the fans loved you, and all that kind of extra stuff, you know, what'll that be like? You know,
those, I mean, again, some of the things, and Marty Lyons Foundation is one that I work closely with. Looking forward to seeing Marty Lyons, and, you know, the people that we've helped while I was there means the most to me. But, you know, it's business, and you know, they got to understand, and they do understand, you know, it is what it is, and, you know, I'm a Denver Bronco, and shoot, we're trying to go win.
It's not a typical place to have a player off day. What did guys get into yesterday?
I mean, sleep, about all, sleep and eat. I ate about 14 times yesterday. That's about all I did was eat and then eat some more.
What was the best thing you had?
A few more.
Of all the 14 times, what was the best food you had yesterday?
So I had I had a chicken sandwich. It was pretty good. They had like Texas toast, and then so they served the open face, which I didn't really know what that meant. And I realized they didn't have a top bun, so I had to ask for a top bun with my chicken sandwich.
The challenge of facing Aaron Rodgers, you didn't get to really play with him last year. His season was over 4 plays. And what is the challenge of facing Aaron? Is there any bad blood
from the Hackett thing, you think? Any carryover?
No. This again. We understand this is business. There's very few quarterbacks in the league that do what he does, and he's a mental guy. He understands that the game is won before the snap. So just winning pre-snap, understanding that, he's gonna try to get you with the cadence. He can throw the ball. He can make every throw. He can still run coming off Achilles. And they got playmakers. They got a good O-line over there. So a challenge for us, but an opportunity for us.
You guys build to get better. Coming off the week you had last week in Tampa, I'm sure the confidence is as high as it's been so far for this team.
Yeah, confidence is one of the biggest things in this league. And again, once you see that you can do it, it's a whole lot easier doing it again than it is doing it for the first time. First win is always the hardest. First sack is the hardest. First tackle is the hardest. And after that, you understand that this man puts his pants on just like everybody else and shit, to strap it up and go.
There's John Franklin Myers. He never disappoints, and he usually has a couple bleeps in there as well. He is a former Jet, was a solid player for them, and they're going to miss him, frankly, because Hassan Reddick, who they moved John Franklin Myers because of the fact they had to create salary space for Hassan Reddick. He's never reported. They had a deal in place for him, and the understanding was, hey, we're going to talk to you about a contract extension, but only if you come to the building. And as far as I understand, he's never reported ever. You wonder, does he get a hat? Does he get a sweatshirt? He's a Jet without being a Jet. I think at some point he reports, and because he needs to accrue the service time to be a true free agent, an unrestricted free agent. But they would have obviously kept John Franklin Myers if they'd known that Hassan Reddick was never going to report or sign. So just something to keep an eye on there. And then Aaron Rodgers, as is his want, took a shot at Hassan Reddick's agent on the Pat McAfee show earlier this week, when there was a story in The Athletic about what agents were saying about different teams and about the Jets. It said it's a terrible vibe and that Aaron Rodgers has too much control. And Rodgers basically said, well, we know who he talked to there, that was Hassan Reddick's agent. So puts a little zing in that. So, Rodgers, it's interesting, and we'll get into this, but we're not seeing the venom that we saw last year remember, this game carried more weight and had more juice last year because of the fact Sean Payton had called Nathaniel Hackett's job of coaching the Broncos one of the worst in NFL history in those 15 games before he was fired. Then Aaron Rodgers came back and defended it. There was the belief in the coaching fraternity that, Sean Payton crossed the line. You don't criticize other head coaches. Leave that to the media. That's not really your place. And fans loved it when Payton criticized Hackett because, again, Hackett's a nice guy. It was the worst coaching job I've ever covered in 30 years of covering professional sports. And then Hackett, defended himself but didn't really get into it. And then Hackett was, celebrating last year when he got the last laugh. The Jets beat the Broncos in Denver. Just a demoralizing loss for the Broncos, one of several games where they led at half at home and didn't win, including the Raiders, Commanders, and Jets, and then I believe it was Patriots. It's the reason they didn't make the playoffs last year. So you could look specifically at that Jets game and say, man, they win that game, maybe they're in position to go to the playoffs. So they did not go to the playoffs. They lost to the Jets. And now you have an opportunity for Sean Payton with the quarterback he wants in Bo Nix, a defense that's playing out of this world, go back and return the favor in New York. Different challenge, though, because you're not facing Zach Wilson. He's now on the Broncos. You're facing Aaron Rodgers. What does that look like? And who replaces Alex Singleton? Man, was this just devastating news to find out as we got here in West Virginia on Tuesday night / Wednesday morning that Alex Singleton lost for the season with a torn ACL in his right knee. He'll have surgery in a couple of weeks. But how do they go about replacing him? We'll get to that after the break. You're looking to make your home more comfortable, just make it look nicer. Glass doors can add a nice touch. That's where Jamie Haight comes in. He and his wife, Lisa, run RBJ. Pride themselves on honesty and integrity. I've known Jamie forever. He does great work. He put a sliding glass door and screen in our house. We absolutely love it. They stand behind their work at RBJ. They install European shower closures, standard shower glass. They do mirrors, window and glass replacement, insulated doggy doors, office cubicles, and small commercial storefronts. They have competitive prices and offer discounts to veterans, senior citizens, and have even accommodated single parents. So what are you waiting for? Give my friend Jamie a call. That's Jamie of RBJ Glass, 720-883-3144, 720-883-3144, or email Jamie at rbjglass2017@gmail.com. Welcome back to the pod. I'm Troy Renck from the Denver Post here in Lewisburg, West Virginia for a few more hours. Going to see practice on Friday, get a quick press conference, and then we're on the road. We're heading to Dulles, getting on an airplane and going from there to Newark, and then it is almost game time. And this game became more challenging this week with the news that Alex Singleton out for the year with a torn right ACL. And just quickly on Singleton. I said this on Mile High Sports Radio yesterday with Eric Goodman and Bruce Hurdle. It's not just that he's their leading tackler. He brings a persona. I equate him. He's like Patrick Swayze in Roadhouse. He's got personality. It's the intangibles, the hair, the leadership. And it's real. And I know people roll their eyes at that. I can hear your eyes rolling, but it is real. And he called the plays. He had the green dot. So replacing him won't be easy. And I want to shout out Singleton. He was hurt on the 8th play of the game. It's my understanding from talking to sources, he knew that his knee was screwed up, but he was able to play without being completely compromised. And it was basically like, I'm going to play this game because I know my season's over, that he knew something was messed up. He didn't limp out after the locker room. I interviewed him after the locker room, and he didn't limp out, but obviously there was swelling that night. They find out Sunday night with an MRI, torn ACL. And that's part of our worry with the Broncos. They were 8-9 last year, and they were incredibly healthy. Well, now Mike McGlinchey's out for a month. Baron Browning's going to be out for the month. And Audric Estime lost for a month. And now you've got Singleton out for the year. This is what the NFL is. It's a collision sport. So sometimes when you're healthy, I know they want to credit it to Bo Lowry and some of the stuff they do behind the scenes. And I have no doubt that you can kind of win in the margins there. But football is a collision sport, and guys get hurt. And they get hurt sometimes when nothing happens. And it was a non-contact injury with Singleton. We see this all the time with ACLs. It's just at one point the knee gives out. So how do you replace him? There's no easy answer. They brought in Quan Alexander, former Saint, guy who's bounced around the league. He's had, I think, multiple ACL surgeries and worked out for the Vikings. They didn't sign him. He signs here. Will he be elevated this week? Cunningham, the kid from Vanderbilt, some experience, played with the Texans at one point. Would he be elevated? I think they're going to have to do duct tape and chicken wire to try to get through this the next few weeks to see if it settles down. But in the meantime, the immediate solution looks like Cody Barton for the green dot. He's new to the defense, and he's played about 40% of the snaps. He comes off the field when they're in nickel, and that's when Singleton would stay on. So I would expect Barton's going to play 100% of the snaps this week. Will he get exposed in coverage? I mean, obviously they felt Singleton was a little better than him in coverage, or Barton would be on the field. But Barton's a guy they got from Washington in the offseason. His story's not that dissimilar from Singleton. Special teams guy who worked his way into the starting lineup. Pretty sound tackler. So keep an eye on Barton. They need him to play well. Maybe there's a role, or a niche role for a Quan Alexander or Cunningham. We'll see. Maybe that develops next week when they return home. But it's a loss because of the leadership, the green dot, all of those things, and the fact that Singleton has led him in tackles. There's a dependability. I know some people, he misses too many tackles. I get it, but the reality is on this team, he's been a very good player and he's a leader, and that's difficult to replace. So Barton's going to have to step up. He's going to have to play well. But I will say this: they have a chance still to win this game. And we will get to our final topic of the day, and that is, Bo Nix or Vance Joseph, VJ, more important this week. And I'm going to be honest, it's Vance Joseph. I wrote about it in my column that's in the Denver Post right now, that Vance Joseph won't say it, but he's the reason behind the Orange Rush. The Broncos' stats, folks, are just alarmingly good defensively right now. I mean, last year in about 6 categories, they ranked dead last, whether it was yards per game, yards per play, net passing, net rushing, points per game. Last year at this time, they were allowing 40 points a game. This year they're down to 15. That's like 4th in the league. They're top 5 in multiple categories, including net passing, net rushing. Net total yards, points per game. Their sacks, 14 sacks. They are absolutely just in a tornadic frenzy. Getting to the quarterback, had 7 last week. And I understand that Tampa Bay wasn't great offensively, but they were still home. And you get 7 sacks as a road team, that's impressive. And they did it against Seattle. They kept the Broncos in the game. Now, they had a bad third quarter against Kenneth Walker. Part of that was the 7 straight 3-and-outs by the offense. Then they gave the Broncos a chance to beat the Steelers in a 13-6 absolute yawner. The defense played well. The defense gave them a chance, kept getting the ball back for them, kept that game within reach when the offense wasn't doing anything. At that point in the season, the offense, after 2 games, had 14 3-and-outs, 12 innings and punts. I mean, when your defense is giving up 13 points, you should win that game. And then last week, they're like, okay, we're only going to give up a touchdown. And that took just a terrific catch by Chris Godwin to get in the end zone. But Vance Joseph, I talked to him yesterday about this. It was a year ago this week. Everyone wanted him fired. They had just lost 70-20 to the Dolphins in one of the most embarrassing, if not most embarrassing, regular season losses in team history. It was lack of communication, poor tackling, and effort. I mean, you go back and watch the film, there were some guys who absolutely checked out. And that list, frankly, starts with Randy Gregory. And so you had guys checking out on him. You had guys not communicating, trying to blend Vance's scheme with the scheme they used the year before with Evero. And then you have guys just missing tackles. But rather than point the finger and blame the players, because the players let him down, rather than point the finger at the players and play the blame game, he pointed it in the mirror. And guys really respected that last year. I remember Baron Browning telling me that at length, that like, hey, we were awful. And he's not yelling at us. He's still got our back. He's supporting. Like, it's kind of like we owe it to him to figure this out. And they got better. The defense with the 16 takeaways during the 5-game win streak powered that stretch and revived the season. When you want to try to tell me that Sean Payton's signature win was last year was against the Chiefs, it had nothing to do with the offense. It was one of their worst offensive games of the season. That was a defensive win. That's why when I said it was a signature win for Payton against Tampa Bay, it was his offense, his aggressiveness, his play calling set the tone for the game. The reason they beat the Chiefs last year at home and ended that embarrassing 16-game losing streak was because of the defense, folks. It was the defense. And that's powered that streak. Well, through 3 games, the Broncos defense is the orange rush. Their pressure rate is top 5 in the league. Their sack number, I told you, is 2nd in the league. They are getting after the quarterback. And their chance of pulling off the upset, I think they're a 6.5-point dog. Originally, I think they were an 8-point dog. Their chance at an upset is very simple. It's the same way you beat Peyton Manning or Tom Brady or Drew Brees. You have to get pressure up the middle and get them off their spot. Make them uncomfortable. Because as much as Rodgers ran around last week, he's not going to want to do that on the regular. Coming at 40 years old, coming off Achilles surgery. Make him get uncomfortable inside the pocket. And he's amazing. First ballot Hall of Famer, 4-time MVP. But you saw it against the 49ers. You can make him uncomfortable. Get pressure. Keep them in 3rd and longs. Because he's not a guy that's going to hang in there. He's going to get rid of the ball quickly. So you have to have plaster coverage off the line, and you've got to be able to get pressure up the middle. That's where DJ Jones, Zach Allen's been one of the best defensive players, interior players in the league so far. Zach Allen, DJ Jones, John Franklin Myers, being able to do stunts, get internal, inside pressure is the key. Because if you allow guys to get easy off the line of scrimmage, at Garrett Wilson or whether it's a Mike Williams or whomever, you allow that with Aaron Rodgers' accuracy, getting rid of the ball with no discomfort, you're dead. You're going to lose. Uncomfortable. So it starts with slowing the run, killed them. And the Jets, 2-headed running back attack. But Breece Hall has killed the Broncos. Each of the past 2 times he's played him, he's had like a 72-yard touchdown run. He is really good. So you've got to slow the run. You're not going to stop the run. They're not built to stop the run. You got to slow the run. And you have to be able to get them into 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7, where you can get interior pressure, where they're trying to get routes that develop a little bit longer. And that's how you win this game. You're not probably going to pick off Aaron Rodgers, maybe once. He's not going to put the ball in harm's way like a Baker Mayfield did, or a Geno Smith, or a Justin Fields. He's not that. But he's also a guy that will bail on plays and not throw picks. And so that's the thing with pressure. He'll throw it away. He'll live to fight another day, but that's a win for your defense. So who's more important to this win? It's Vance Joseph. That said, Bo Nix has to build on what he did last week. Bo Nix, first drive, we know, 4 for 4, 70 yards. After that, he was 21 of 31 for 146 yards. That number won't win. They've got to get him where he's more like 20 for 30 for 200 yards and a touchdown. He needs to throw his first touchdown this week for them to pull off the upset and still have the design quarterback draws. He's one of the fastest quarterbacks in the league. They need him around 8 rushes, 50 yards. And he's been able to protect himself. That's why I put that figure at 8. He needs to be that. That's a tough ask. I get it. But if he's around 8, you got Tyler Badie. He recently changed the pronunciation of his last name. He did. It wasn't that we were all mispronouncing it. He has changed it to Badie. There's a story there involving family he said he would expand on later. But it's Tyler Badie now. He needs to start at running back. With all due respect to Javonte Williams. Javonte Williams has averaged 3 yards a carry over his last 13 games. It's not new. Move Javonte Williams into Samaje Perine's role as a 3rd down back. He's good on blitz pickup. Make Tyler Badie your starter, and Jaleel McLaughlin's role stays the same. So you get Badie 10 to 15 touches. McLaughlin gets his 5 to 7, and then you get probably 3 or 4 rushes for Javonte, maybe 3, and you get him 5 catches out of the backfield. But the slip screens, the quick hitters, the draws, those are going to be critical against this Jets defense. And I'm going to surprise you all. Not that I'm going to be wrong because I'm terrible at picks. I believe the Broncos are going to win this game. It just sets up as a type of game they can win. Now, if they don't, they're not in a terrible spot going back home. Raiders, I think it's Raiders, Chargers, Raiders. Winnable games at home. At some point, you got to beat the Raiders if you're going to call yourself a contender. The Broncos, again, they've lost 16 or lost 17 of the Raiders, Chiefs, and I think it's 8 of 9 to the Raiders. Like, what are we doing? But this is a winnable game. Win ugly, win low scoring, win boring. I have the Broncos, believe it or not, winning 20 to 17. If they lose, would I be surprised? No, I'm not surprised. They're a 6.5, 7-point dog. But there's a path here. There's a path here. And part of me is rooting for it because of the story of Payton and the Broncos exacting revenge on Nate Hackett. What would that look like? What would that look like on a Sunday with the Broncos coming back 2-2? They would then, mark my words, be back at the Greenbrier Resort, whether it's on a road trip next year or at training camp. Folks, I hope you enjoyed this pod. Big A behind the board. He makes all of this possible. He got up early, an early wake-up call after being at Nuggets Media Day with Grumpy Jamal yesterday. I get grumpy Sean Payton. He gets grumpy Jamal, so maybe it's all even. I don't know that I would be grumpy if I just got $209 million, I'll be honest. But I could not do the show without Mile High Sports and Nate Lundy, RBJ Glass, and Jamie Haig, and, of course, my man, A1 from day one, Darby Hoggett of Hoggett Injury Law. Broncos country, I do this pod for you. Happiness that begins with me. Go out there and have a great day.